Helmet wigs are no joke, and of course I had to learn the hard way. You would not believe how long people have been requesting I cosplay Cookie Run. I mean, I do cosplay a lot of food, but I hadn't really connected with any of the cookies until I saw Black Forest Cake Cookie. I don't know what it is about her design, I love it, and this cosplay is going to be relatively straightforward. It actually is a closet cosplay. I will be using this dress that I've had for many years and worn to many occasions, and I will be using all materials that I already have for the bouquet. But first, let's get started on this wig. Y'all, I'm so scared for my first helmet wig, but we're gonna get through it together. Now, how I'm doing my helmet wig is I'm not starting with a wig base because I'm doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to wrap my head with plastic wrap. And once it's all secure, I do cover it with duct tape, which is honestly a little tricky to do. I don't want to catch any of my own hairs in the duct tape, but I managed to get that done. That slid clean off my head, so I thought I was doing something right. It was kind of weird to see a perfect cast of my head. Now we can mark where the seams are on this cap and then cut it out of our fabric. The color of this fabric doesn't really matter. I decided to go with 3 pieces for this cap, 1 down the middle and 2 that will go on the side. And this is where it's useful to have a sewing machine. I just quickly sewed the pieces together. With the cap complete, let's take out the plastic wrap again and wrap the wig head instead of my head. And now here comes the real scary part. We outside, cause it's time to glue. And yes, this glue is very toxic, and that's why we're outside and why we're using a mask. This is a trial and error process for me. I really did not want to use hot glue because I'm wearing this wig in the summertime and I thought the glue would heat up and just misshapen, so I used something more permanent. I'm not entirely sure this part was necessary because of how I chose to do things later, but I'm including this because I did in fact glue all over this wig. Yo, those mosquitoes were crazy. Do you see them swarming me? That's literally why I'm wearing long sleeves covered in bug spray. But let's hurry this up because I want to go inside. I know I look real crazy right now, but we gotta trust the process. So this is how it looks with the first layer of glue. I think I need more, and it has like this weird like gapping here. I want to preface this by saying I did let the glue dry for about a day before handling it. I think it dried before that, but I don't like being too close to it just in case it still is a little smelly. The wig cap was still flexible, so I could easily just sew in those little gaps. I want the wig to be fitted, but not so much that it's hurting my head. It was at this moment that I decided to let go of gluing. I have some foam with a sticky backing, and I decided to just recreate the shell of the wig cap with the foam and cover it with that. I just was not enjoying gluing, and I thought this would be easier. It actually was. But instead of gluing this to the wig cap, I'm going to hand sew it down. I'm just hesitant of the heat mixed with the sweat and the glue. I just think things could fall apart and be misshapen. So I think reinforcing it by sewing really can save your butt in a pinch. Here's the helmet part of the helmet wig. It's nice and sturdy and still flexible, so I kind of like this method. Now it's time to skedaddle and get the hair for the actual wig. I always love including a bit of my own culture in all of my cosplays, and the way I do that the most is through the hair. So I went straight to the hair store. At first, I was thinking maybe I should use some braiding hair, just like the traditional straighter hair, doing a kinky straight wig. But, you know, that afro texture is always calling me. And my hair is curly, kinky, coily. I just wanted her to have the most fluffy hair. So I went with my gut and picked up a few packs of this Cuban twist hair. This is the hair a lot of people use for locks, for twisting, and I had a feeling it might work. I actually picked up a few other things I needed from the store. I needed some foam and some glue and some paint. Also, I finally got myself a heat gun. It's about time. For the rest of the things I need, I already had them at home. I have this random assortment of wire, don't know where I got it from, and I had a thinner sheet of foam. So I went ahead and cut out the bang shape first because I figured that I needed to start somewhere and this part seemed a little challenging. I had to untangle my wire and I wanted to wrap the wire around the edges of the bang so I could give it a little bit of a curve on my forehead. To make the rest of the bang, I had to curl the foam around something cylinder. I have this old shovel prop and I just decided to use that. And I had to whip out my heat gun just so that I could get it to hold this shape. This took a few tries for me to get it as curled as I want, and I recommend curling it tighter than what you actually think you need because it's gonna loosen up as you start styling. Now I'm arranging all the hair pieces on the wig just to see if I like the shape overall. It looks a little limp now, but trust me, we're gonna sew everything into place and start gluing on the hair. Because of the weird curly thing in the middle of this part, I had to actually lay it flat. I first colored everything with a brown color. This is because you might be able to see the foam a little bit through the hair, and if it's brown, then it won't really show up that much. I also decided to paint the little curly thing a lighter brown just so it's easier for me to tell where to glue the hair and also so it'll match that color of hair. Now we glue. I'm using super glue because that's what I had on hand, but it's kind of nice because it dries really fast. And you really need this to dry fast because we're making the design in the center. Again, I'm gonna say don't use hot glue, especially if you're wearing this wig in the middle of summer. We do not want the hair to start falling off while we're wearing it. It's a little bit easier if you just watch what I'm doing, so cue the montage of me gluing hair to the bang. Unlike the piece we just completed, we are going to sew the other foam pieces to the wig first. This is mostly because we're going to be making a fake part on the top of the head. I also had some batting fabric I thrifted a while ago that I used to fill up some of the gaps I had, like the gap at the top of the head, some of the gaps on the side. I will be painting this as well. Y'all already know the drill. We are painting this entire thing brown. And then we're going to start gluing hair again. Let me explain how to do this fake part. You want to make sure that there's a little bit of space between each of your foam pieces because we want to glue a clump of hair there. Then we're going to press it down and make sure it dries in that position because this will make it look like you have a middle part. You won't see any scalp, but it's basically an illusion and it works really, really well. Now we can just finish up gluing all the hair to the bangs. Yeah, so I ran out of glue pretty quickly, multiple times actually, so I decided to order the glue that everyone says is the best for wigs, and that's Uhu glue. We gotta wait for that to come in, so let's move to some other parts of the wig. Now we get out our foam roll and start cutting it into strips. First, I'm going to cut 4 strips the short way and then flip it and cut 4 strips the long way. This way I can have 2 layers of different lengths of hair. I ultimately decided not to make this a floor length wig because 1, I wanted to be able to sit down. I think it would have just been too much. And 2, I really only wanted to use 1 roll of foam. I painted one of the shorter strips and then I glued a piece of wire along the edge. This is to keep the curl shape. Also, it doesn't go all the way up just because I didn't have enough and I thought this would make my wig a lot lighter. An extra step for the shorter piece is to sew 2 of the edges together. This will help hold the shape once we sew it onto the wig. it's the moment of truth. We gotta see if I like Uhu glue. Thankfully, the glue came just in time for me to glue the hair to the strip. I have to say, it is really nice that this is not toxic, and it does dry pretty clear, but it takes so long to dry that it doesn't really hold the hair in place. I ultimately realized the best option is to do a combination of super glue and Uhu glue so that you can use the super glue to hold down the hair in one spot. Super glues with a brush applicator are the best. You have so much more control and you can use much less product, which means it'll last way longer. Anyways, here's the finished strip of hair. Sorry, I'm just laughing because wow, I'm surprised this is actually coming out. As you can see, this is like, it's really hard to move, but I need to sew this on a little bit better. As you can see, it's flopping around. This one's kind of sturdy. I still haven't put the hair in the back. That's why you can see the hole here. But I feel like this is looking really accurate. Now we're just going to repeat everything we did before, but for the back pieces. These are a lot longer, so you will need a bit more hair. And speaking of the hair, I actually was trying to do somewhat of an ombre effect. When you look at Black Forest Kid Cookie, you can see that her hair is a lot of different browns. And that's why I'm using a variety of shades. We are almost done with this wig, but we still have to sew all the back pieces on, which is very tedious and kind of tricky because it's best to try it on and then take it off and then re-sew it. And it's quite the process. So I wanted to talk, I know this looks crazy, but I wanted to talk a bit about what I'm doing in terms of sewing. So I've sewed them down, but I had to reinforce it multiple times. And I also had to sew some of the hair strips to each other. This is really helping it keep the shape. So I actually don't think I need to use glue at all. While I finish up the last bit of sewing, let's skip to the next part of the cosplay. The cherries. So we're gonna start with 3 balls of some sort. I randomly have these snowball thingies, but you could use a styrofoam ball, anything you have on hand. You also could just make it from aluminum foil. I'm just adding a layer of aluminum foil just to make my balls a bit thicker. With some of the leftover wire, you want to make the stem, so I just cut a few pieces and stuck it in the tinfoil. We're ultimately going to cover the entire thing with foam, but this will help prevent the stem from breaking off. You're gonna want to make this as smooth as possible, so take your time. Also, it can be helpful to let the foam dry out a bit and then add some water to just smooth out the creases. Painting this is pretty straightforward. You just need any acrylic paint. I'm gonna go with the cartoony look, so you just need a red that you like. I mixed mine with a little bit of brown just to get it a more like darker, richer red. I just had to paint a small little highlight and a larger shadow area that you can see in the image. Me when I accidentally recorded this in slow motion, but that's okay. Here is the wedding dress that I'm about to turn into the veil and the bouquet. I just gotta say, I thrifted this like, what was it, 3 years ago maybe? And it was only $10. And there's just like so much of it. So I'm gonna just take a little bit and probably save the rest for something else. I feel like I can do something really cool with the lace on this. I don't know. Let's get to working. We are wrapping things up, and this is the easiest part. I really just had to cut the seams so I could get a little section of the lacy bride fabric, and I cut it into a triangle. I didn't feel like doing any fancy sewing or anything. I also layered it with a different, less transparent fabric just so you can't see the hair through the veil. I honestly wasn't a huge fan of how it looked, so I decided to add some bows. I just made these quickly out of ribbon, and this really helped me enjoy the cosplay. So without further ado, let's go to the reveal. And with that, my big wig is complete. And now I just gotta figure out how to bring this to a con.